He's Adrian Fiala. I'm Jake Bogus. We are joined by Big Red Report, BigRedReport.com's Joshua Harvey. He made the trip to Minneapolis. How was it, Josh?
Minneapolis was fun. It's hard to go to those bigger cities because the college game day atmosphere isn't quite as big. I got to the airport and was asked, "Are you going to the game?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Who you like, the Vikings or the Packers?" I mean, so it's one of those things. And until you get really close to the stadium, you just don't necessarily feel the atmosphere like you would here in Lincoln. But it was a good time, and the stadium was impressive. It was the first time I'd seen it. So,
where did you have your first bratwurst?
Let's see. I was actually
and your second one, and your third one, and your fourth one.
I was actually at the stadium when that happened.
Oh, okay.
I was
for all of them, or just the one?
I had two, and one was during the pregame meal. That was my second one, and then one was outside.
Okay,
a little tailgate.
That was it.
That was it. Just two.
Oh my,
just two.
My oh my. We're gonna have to. Hey, you went to school up there, didn't you?
Yeah, I went. After the chair incident, I'm trying to cut down on the bratwurst here.
But Josh, we're not going to make fun of it. You want to explain what
you brought
happened?
it up?
You brought it up.
You brought it up.
You brought it up.
I broke a couple of chairs here in the studio.
Not one, but two.
I went home and I told my wife, and she's like, "Yeah, I've been trying to tell you need to get back to exercising for a while now." And so, it started. So I'm trying to cut down on the brats. But yeah,
that's good.
I went to school in northern Minnesota, and so I have a lot of friends now who've relocated to the city. So it was a good trip for me personally.
So you know the bratwurst real well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Tell you what, some of the best I ever had right up there in Stillwater, Minnesota, right on the St. Croix River. Beautiful spot. But anyway, Josh, so good trip up there to Minnesota. Get treated well. Fans, that was all okay.
Gopher fans don't have a lot of room to be
boastful.
Yeah, boastful. They're pretty well-behaved fans.
Sometimes, they're just nasty folks sometimes, but not Gophers. But just in general, you run into nasty people. But I'm just this Husker football team. Last week, were you here when we talked about making a statement, a convincing win, that kind of thing?
Yep.
They got that, Josh, and do you think it's really going to be significant with what's coming up this week?
I would have been convinced if they would have played the first half the same way they did the second half. I think it was more than a convincing win. I think they went out, did what they needed to do. They needed to score early. They needed to put this team away, and they did all that. But still, the second half, I know there was a lot of rotation. They were getting a lot of new, fresh faces in there, getting guys reps, the younger guys. And I know offensively they changed the game plan around a little bit. We saw Taylor Martinez trying to go downfield. I think they were really working on some, key offensive plays like the downfield pass. But that second half was somewhat sloppy. And Bo Pelini, said it as much on Saturday, said it again today. They didn't finish blocks. There was a lot of things that they could have done better in the second half. So I think that almost that second half, I don't want to say it completely wiped out the first half. It was still a great win. I think a good confidence booster, but I think it could have been so much more if they would have performed just a little bit better.
So how confident are you heading into Michigan State?
I think Michigan State is due for a loss, and so I'm going to say
you're a believer in those due for things. All right, okay.
I'm saying Nebraska wins this football game, and people can say I'm drinking the Homer Kool-Aid. Vegas.
You were the 10-win guy early on.
Yeah,
10 or 11 wins.
I was actually the 11 wins. I said Nebraska loses to Wisconsin, and they win every other game. And so far, we're still on.
So far, we're
still on track. So
it's the best offense in the Big Ten going against the best defense in the Big Ten, and we always, at least I always think that usually the best defense wins that. But I tell you what, I Josh, I got a tendency to go with you here. Michigan State has played 3 very tough games and won them all. It's tough, as you know. You cover this stuff a lot, very long, and it's tough for them it's tough for any team to really play at peak 4 weeks in a row against very good competition. So that's an issue there. Secondly, they're playing here at Lincoln. We will have the home field advantage, whatever that's worth. I'm not sure if that's worth 3 or 4 or 6 or whatever it may be. That's usually kind of the standard.
It's worth something, yeah.
It's worth something. Usually
6 in Vegas's eyes.
6
usually.
is usually, It's usually, and I think what you said earlier, we're 4-point favorite.
4.5 point favorite.
Yeah. So I think this attitude for this football team last week, last game against Minnesota, first 6 times, Josh, 6 scores. You like that? We didn't turn the ball over. You like that? Defense, I think, played a little more respectable. You like that? I think offense is coming. Defense appears to maybe start stepping on that first step or two. So it's a good direction for the Huskers.
Yeah, Bo Pelini talked about it last Monday. He the way he was talking, it sounded like this team was getting closer, and I think we saw that. this week. We saw the product a little more polished. You talked about Michigan State having to get up every week for game after game, and they've had some big ones. This is a senior-based team. Kirk Cousins, one of the best senior quarterbacks in the country. I think they're going to have a little bit easier time getting up week after week than maybe a younger team. But the biggest thing that I look at is that game on Saturday night, the way it ended. That is just that's the making of a letdown this following week after the Hail Mary, amazing play. And so, yeah, if you're Michigan State, you have to worry about the guys coming out flat.
I don't want to be the devil's advocate, play Mr. Pessimism here. This is a Nebraska defense that looked okay against Minnesota. They look pretty good, right? It's Minnesota. They didn't look that great against Ohio State until their starting quarterback went down. They looked terrible against Wisconsin. And they didn't look that great against Fresno State or Wyoming or Washington. They gave up 38 points. If they are going to show up, this offense in Michigan State is it's not real. It's going to be difficult. Kirk Cousins, Cunningham, Baker. I am just saying that if Michigan State's defense can kind of keep Nebraska's offense in check, I don't know how Nebraska's defense is going to stop Michigan State.
I will tell you this, Jake. The one thing that I look forward to this matchup with is Kirk Cousins is probably the slowest quarterback they've faced all season. He's a pocket throwing guy. He's not a guy you have to worry about getting out of the pocket and hurting this team. And that's what's hurt Nebraska's mobile quarterbacks when their secondary and their linebackers have to worry about, they're letting off receivers because they're worried about Russell Wilson or Braxton Miller running around. When Ohio State had to bring in Bowserman, yes, he was throwing horrible. Row 62, I like to keep saying. He was throwing all over the place. But at the same time, Nebraska's corners were able to run with the Ohio State wide receivers. And I think that's going to be a similar situation this week. They're not going to have to focus as much as about a quarterback run.
Now, hang on. When you say Nebraska was able to run with Ohio State's wide receivers, I want you to defend this a little bit because Bowserman, I saw him play against Michigan State. I saw him early on in the season against Miami. He's terrible. He is a terrible quarterback. So just the fact that you might look at film and the DBs are running with their wide receivers, I'm just saying Kirk Cousins is not Joe Bowserman. And if he might be a pocket passer, I agree with you. It helps that he is not mobile. That's good. But that doesn't mean he can't pick apart Nebraska's weak secondary.
I'm not saying that he can't pick apart the secondary. I'm just saying some of the secondary's deficiencies at times might have been because they were playing a mobile quarterback and they always couldn't just focus on wide receivers. Against Ohio State in that second half, they weren't worried about Bowserman running for first downs.
No, yeah.
They look at Stanley Jean-Baptiste on the interception. Not once is he ever looking back to see if Bowserman's taken off. He's running stride with a wide receiver, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that Cousins might not pick the secondary apart. I'm just saying the secondary doesn't have to worry about a quarterback.
You both of you talked about Cousins being the drop back, kind of the prototypical drop back passer. So maybe it's time. Maybe we see some more pressure coming out of the defense, the Husker defense, and see what that does to Cousins. See if we can chase him, get him out of his rhythm. Create some issues as far as his throws go. When you do that to a quarterback, you increase your opportunity for interceptions. You increase the opportunity for incompletions. It just creates a lot of good things for your defense. Now, when you talk about Jake, you mentioned something there a moment ago about the Michigan State defense is going to take care of our offense.
If they can contain the offense, yeah.
Yeah, and how's that going to happen? Well, you know what? Last Thursday and Friday when we talked about Texas Tech playing against Oklahoma, not many people gave Tech they played at Oklahoma. Oklahoma was, 25?
29-point dogs,
yeah.
I hadn't heard
How'd that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened. Oklahoma just decided, maybe it's a rollover. Now, will Michigan State do that? I doubt it. I really doubt it.
They're not even favored.
But the thing about it is that Michigan State has been they've been through three tough games, and they're going to go one way or the other. I don't see them being anywhere in between. They're either going to continue to excel and do what they've been doing, or it's going to be a tough day for them. So one way or the other, I hope our defense, I think today is better than what we saw after week 3, week 4 earlier in the year, and I think that accounts Jean-Baptiste accounts for some of that. I think Dennard is playing better. Those first couple of games he was back, he played okay, but he's playing better now. We saw some pretty good linebacker play again, and Lance Thorell, we'll see him on the field again come this week. This kid, I don't care what you say about him. The kid just he's a player. He's a player, and he can make plays. So I'm encouraged by the whole thing. Let's hope our offense is the one that can make it work against their defense.
Yeah, and on that same note, it seems like right now we're searching for areas of optimism to play against this Michigan State team. That's what it feels like to me, because here's a team that defeats Michigan, okay? They were undefeated when they played them. They took care of Ohio State in Columbus. And then they decided to, have the home game against Wisconsin, a team that beat Nebraska by 31 points, just manhandled them second through fourth quarter, and Michigan State takes care of them. They got down 14-0. They stayed the course, and they beat them. Who has Nebraska beat? Washington, they just got crushed by 45 against Stanford. And Fresno State, they're not doing anything right now. Nebraska, they were going crazy after the huge 21-point comeback. I'm not trying to stir up controversy. Just look at it. It was an unranked Ohio State team that hasn't done anything this entire season. It was a nice win against Minnesota. Nebraska looked really good, racking the score up 34-0 at halftime. This is the test. I am baffled that Nebraska is favored. Now, sure, they can go prove me wrong, and I'm sure if Bo Pelini was listening to this, he would say, oh, yeah, we can do it, and don't believe all the hype and all that stuff about Michigan State. 4.5-point favorites against a Michigan State team that looks very, very solid. I don't buy into that whole emotional roller coaster of 3 straight games. Well, they played well all 3 straight games. Why can't they do it for 4 straight games?
Because sometimes it doesn't work that way, Jake. That's why.
And all I'm going to say is Notre Dame. I watched that Notre Dame
They
game.
didn't look good.
Yeah.
And I watched them get crushed last year 37-6 to Iowa on the road, a game they were favored. I've seen this Michigan State team. Everybody expects them to come. Yeah, they've been inconsistent, and that's
that's the reason upsets happen. The reason teams that are 25-point underdogs win a game against like this Oklahoma Texas Tech thing is because people sometimes they come into a game after 3 or 4 tough ball games or very competitive games, and their energy level just isn't there. And if that happens to Michigan State, and it very well could, then you'll see what we're talking about. And you say you can't understand it.
But they're the underdog.
Well,
Michigan
it doesn't make any
State is
difference what
underdog.
they are. I don't care what they are. They've had 3 tough games. They've won them all. They've had to play tough football. And for them to come out again and do it again, yeah, they could do it. There's no doubt in my mind. But will they? I don't know. No, you don't know that. I don't know that. And you say, that, why can't they do it? Well, they can. But they can also come out and go in the tank. And the reason that happens a lot is after 3 tough games, after 3 or 4 weeks of tough preparation, your body just doesn't respond. And, it happens all the time. And for the Huskers, you got to hope that, they have an advantage that way.
Well, then I want to hear from both of you.
Mm-hmm.
So far this season, because I'm telling you, when I saw that spread, I was baffled. What gives you a lot of confidence in Nebraska playing Michigan State this weekend? Because who has Nebraska beaten this season?
You can say that about probably
anybody.
80% of the teams in the top 25 right now, Jake.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe a Kansas State who's undefeated right now. Look at the undefeated teams right now. They have beat legitimate teams. Michigan State just defeated Wisconsin. Wisconsin crushed Nebraska by 31. Oklahoma crushed Texas.
But every year we see that a team get drilled.
Things can happen. Don't get me wrong.
A team gets drilled by somebody, and then later that year, the same team that got drilled beat somebody that beat that team. It's one of those things you really can't compare.
Guys, this is Alabama. They beat Kent State. They beat Penn State.
Big win.
They beat North Texas. They beat Arkansas.
Big win.
They beat Florida. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Mississippi. They beat Tennessee.
There's 3 quality wins on there. Arkansas is a top 20 team. Penn State,
Arkansas
they beat on the road, and they're rated right now.
In the country.
Yeah.
Arkansas is a top 5 team in the country.
And Alabama beat them. So, I'm just saying.
No, or excuse me. I'm saying Alabama is a top 5 team in the country right now.
I'm just saying, you said you could say that about 80% of the teams in the top 25. Sure you could. That's why they're not in the top 5 or 10 right now. And Nebraska, people are like, oh, why did they drop 2 spots in the coaches poll? I'll tell you why. Because teams like Kansas State continue to go undefeated and they jump them. Michigan State has to jump Nebraska right now because Wisconsin destroyed Nebraska. So I don't mean to be Mr. Pessimist, and I know Nebraska very well could come into this game and, people could say Michigan State's on an emotional roller coaster. They're due for a loss. Well, Taylor Martinez has played pretty well for 2 straight games. He's due for a bad game. You could say that as well.
The whole offense has played well.
Yeah,
for
they're due.
games,
You could say they're due for a bad game.
That's a whole different situation. Yeah. That's a whole different situation right there. Taylor Martinez has continued to build as the season has gone along. The offensive line has continued to build as the season has gone along. So, I mean, it's he and the offense have gotten better. And when you get into that trend, yes, you can hit it. You can hit bumps in the road, and they may hit a bump in the road.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, and I don't know.
Sure,
but
that's why we do this.
But it's a situation where when you've got 3 tough games, I'm talking about tough games. Believe me, it's very, very hard to get up for that 4th game or 5th game if you've had 3 or 4 tough ones in a row. So all this esoteric discussion will continue out all week.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
At this point, I've only watched a little bit of Michigan State. I know what their numbers are. I know the numbers are very good in terms of their defensive play. Their offensive numbers are kind of so-so. I mean, they're probably what you've got it right there, Josh, middle of the pack in terms of the national numbers. I think
as far as offensively, yeah. I mean, they're not a team that. I mean, I thought Cousins was going to be more impressive than he already has been.
Mm-hmm.
Edwin Baker, he was a running back that ran for 1,200 yards last year, and I was thinking this guy's going to come in and just be the world beater in his senior season. He hasn't performed necessarily up to par, but nobody expected that Michigan State defense to be as good as they have been, and that's really what's winning them football games.
Their offense is 58th. In scoring. I'm talking about Michigan State's offense, 58th in scoring. Nebraska's 20th. Their total offense, they're 66th. Nebraska's 35th. Passing offense, that's where the things change a little bit. They're 43rd. We are 103rd. But they're 77th in rushing, and we're 7th in the nation in rushing. So it's, like I said, it's 1 defense versus 1 offense in the Big Ten rankings and 7 versus 8 in the national ranking. So there's opportunity there. There's no question in my mind about it.
What do you, and I'm curious both your thoughts on this as well. The defense, are they back? Do you hand out the black shirts now?
No.
Not yet.
Because on Friday you said you better do it soon. So we got to look for a good performance against Michigan State?
At this point, I really don't care.
You don't care at all?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you care about the black shirts?
Because this discussion really... we've talked about it, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, and those black shirts probably should have gone out, a couple of weeks ago versus right now. But right now, when you're talking about, what are we in the game 8?
Yeah, well, this will be game 8, yeah.
I'm sorry, but, almost 3/4 of the season has gone by now, and that really disturbs me. So my response right now is, I don't care. Just hand them out whenever you want to, but hand them out for crying out loud and start messing around with it.
Josh?
I would say I'm glad they haven't been handed out yet. I don't think they've deserved them. It's hard for me to talk about the black shirt tradition because I am an outsider and new to the area. But I'll tell you this. I talked to Rich Glover, former All-American defensive end last week, and he told me, he's like, I'm glad they haven't been handed out. They don't deserve them. They do not deserve them. And I said, well, can I quote you on that? He goes, yeah, you can quote me. They do not deserve a black shirt right now.
Well, if you don't hand them out during fall camp like we discussed last week.
After fall camp.
Or right after fall camp. If you don't hand them out then, you risk your defense underperforming, and then when the heck do you hand them out?
And that's the key.
Yeah, right now.
And as an outsider, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What happens if the black shirts don't get handed out this year?
I think he and I might disagree on this.
Does the world come to an end here in Lincoln?
No.
I honestly,
it's just another. What's the right word to use here? It's just another erosion of sorts of some of the tradition that we've seen, and I don't think that coaching staff and I don't think that administration wants to see that. I mean, they want to keep this tradition intact, our history and our tradition intact. If they don't hand the black shirts out this year at all, some of that has been eroded.
Do you, on that same note then, while we're on it, I mean, would you rather have the black shirts handed out if they're earned or just handed out unearned?
You've earned them by the time you get through fall camp and you're a first-team defender. You've earned it at that point. Black shirts need to go out then.
See, I think that's the problem. I think everybody's definition of a black shirt is different because
a
lot of people would say, well, just because you became a first teamer, you didn't earn it, because what if this defense is allowing 50 points a game for the whole season? I mean, so I don't know. I'm just the outsider, Adrian. I don't know how the whole black shirt tradition. I mean, I've read enough about it. I've heard enough about it. You know, and it's obviously a topic that fires everybody up.
You bet.
Right now, you're ready to go.
Can you hang around for 10 more minutes?
I can.
Sure.
Yeah,
All
whatever.
right, good.
You know,
We're going to take a quick break. Yeah.
Okay,
Go
we'll
show
come
your
back.
thought, Adrian. No, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Fire it up, and we'll be back with this.
Josh Harvey for a little bit more Husker football chatter up next. It's a drive on 93.7 The Ticket.
He's Jake Bogus. I'm Adrian Taylor. We do all sports, only sports, right here on FM. Every day, 3 to 6.
Some days
live and local sports, 11 to 6, and all the way in between there. 93.7 The Ticket right here, KNTK. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. We're having a spirited discussion about the Husker Blackshirts and when the Blackshirts should be awarded. So let's carry on, man.
All right, we got a great. If you're just joining us, last segment, like Adrian said, got into a nice little debate about when to hand out the black shirts. Adrian said, you should hand them out after fall camp. And at this point in the season, when do you give them out? Do you give them out after a Minnesota win? And Adrian said, no, you give them out right away. You earn them at the beginning of the season. Christian writes on the Facebook wall. I think this is a great comment. He says, I agree with Adrian. He's like, did Osborne not give out the black shirts for the early 80s defense that weren't great? That's like saying the president shouldn't be allowed to move into the White House until he's proven himself a great president. And I think that's a solid case for it. And as I told Josh, during the break, I said when Bo Pelini came in here, it became a thing you had to earn during the regular season. And the trouble with that is if you have a defense that underperforms like they have so far this season, you don't know when you're going to hand them out. And then you have guys like Adrian that believe in the tradition of the black shirts, and you have to give them out. Otherwise, you erode that tradition if you don't ever give them out.
No, it's not. I'm not a guy like Adrian. I'm a former black shirt.
Former black shirt.
And I'll tell you this much. For 40 years, the black shirts were given out after spring ball, the conditioning, and fall camp. And you had earned your black shirt when you've been through all of that mess, paid that price, and you're ready to go. What we won't know. We won't know, guys, now because it's not a factor. But what if he would have handed out those black shirts right after fall camp? Getting a black shirt is such an emotional thing. It's such a physical thing. It's such a mental thing for those players. Who knows how they would? Maybe we wouldn't have the issues we had early on as far as the defense goes. I don't know. Pure speculation with that. But what I'm saying is, you've earned it when fall camp finishes up and you've been through the grinder. Every player that goes through any college football program will tell you when you go through fall camp, that is a grinding, grueling process. You get through that, you end up number one on your team. You should get your reward. That's a black shirt.
Couple things. One, I see what Adrian's saying as far as getting, maybe we're not in this mess defensively, but at the same time, what was one of the biggest problems with this defense this year? They probably bought into the hype. If they get those black shirts, are they even thinking more to themselves? Are they walking even taller? It could. I mean, Adrian's right. It could have had that, or it could have been the exact reverse opposite. They were even more full of themselves. And then if you hand them out at the beginning of the year, Jake was talking about this during the break. What do you do then with so much rotation? I mean, this is a team that the first team has definitely not been set from game one.
Personnel changes.
I mean, personnel changes.
Yeah.
If I'm looking, my rough math, they've had at least 18 guys in that first team. So do you hand out 18, Adrian?
No,
how does that work then?
Well, 18 guys, but they're not all running first team, right?
Well, I'm just saying over the course of this. Do you just take them away then and give them to somebody else?
If Josh Mitchell,
yeah, like a guy for Josh Mitchell.
Okay, he was a black shirt. He didn't perform well on Saturday. He's a second teamer come Monday. Bingo, his black shirt's gone. It's happened. It's happened a lot in the past. I mean, there's nothing. Just because you get it doesn't mean you keep it. You've got to play to keep it. So, and whoever was behind him knows that, and they're going to continue to try to get better every time they play. And I'll tell you the other thing that's going to happen is a guy like Josh Mitchell, if he's worth anything, worth his salt, he's going to try to get that thing back. So he's going to try to play harder and not make the mistakes and get out there and perform like he did to be a first teamer. So just because, you got 18 guys, I don't have any problem with 12 or 13 guys having a black shirt because that's how this defense is structured. Okay. But 18, no, you're not going to have 18 guys wearing a black shirt. You don't want that's never happened. It's never happened. So, Devaney handled it that way. Osborne handled it that way. Frank Solich handled it that way. Don't even count the Callahan years because nothing got handled properly in that situation. And this, I'd like to see us get back to giving out the black shirts at the end of fall camp.
Now, you mentioned something I'm curious about. If they would have handed out the black shirts at the beginning of the season, you think they maybe could have played at a different level at this point? You don't know.
I don't know.
For you as a black shirt, did it make you think perform better knowing that you already had the black shirt on an emotional level? Because your physical ability is it's limited.
You knew that you had to play up to a certain level of competition. And everybody that's wearing a black shirt understood that and understands that. It's not something that you just put it on and think it's going to happen. No, it doesn't. Everybody that wears a black shirt knows that you're held to a higher standard. It's like anybody in the professional field, doctors, lawyers, accountants. They're held to a higher standard in terms of their performance than maybe just the average Joe fan. So a black shirt, you wear a black shirt, everybody on that team's looking at you saying he's a black shirt, and I want one of those. I want to play that well. And there is a higher level, a higher expectation to play optimum when you wear that thing.
Aaron, I want to ask you a question because you brought up a great point. I mean, you are a former black shirt, and we're not. So I don't even want to question you. But
no, that's fine.
But what would you say to a guy like Rich Glover, who obviously was a black shirt, as an All-American, went on to have a great career, and he's saying right now, I'm glad they haven't been handed out. I won't hand them out until they earn them. What do you say to another former defensive player, that had the black shirt that feels opposite of you?
I say this in response to every situation like that, Josh. He has his opinion. I have mine. Reasonable men can disagree, and that's what happens here.
Fair enough.
But I dare say, if you go out and we always talk about looking into this stuff after the fact.
Yeah.
But most of the people that I talk to, former black shirts, want that thing to be given out after fall camp. Just in the get-togethers we've had, the parties, the reunions, that kind of thing, most everybody's looking at it from a standpoint that, I'd like to see the black shirt given out right after fall camp, after they've earned it through that grueling process. Richie obviously feels differently. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. But, his opinion counts. My opinion counts. Your opinion counts. Jake, your opinion counts. And they all count. But it's just that, I feel very strongly about this whole situation, and I will continue to do that. And, gentlemen, I'll tell you what, I don't think anybody's ever going to change my opinion. So,
well, you mean on the black shirt issue?
Yeah.
How upset would you be if they never handed out the black shirts this
season?
season?
Would upset me a great deal.
Okay.
That would upset me a great deal. Because I'll tell you why. I think I mentioned it earlier on. You're talking about a historical and traditional event element of this program that has been intact for over 40-some years. And great coaches like Devaney and Osborne and Solich have put that all together and handled it that way. Bill didn't. And now we're seeing it happen here with Bo. And Bo has certainly done a tremendous job, far and above what Bill Callahan and his staff did. And I respect that. I really do. But I would like to see that. I would like to see that changed. I really would.
He's Adrian Fiala. I'm Jake Bogus. We have Matthew on the line. What's up, Matthew?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that I understand what Adrian's saying about the 40-year tradition and all that, but I think it's completely ridiculous to say that if they would have handed them out, they would have played any differently. I mean, it might make a little bit of psychological impact, but I hardly believe that this defense that we have could really have played that much differently if they'd had black shirts. And the other comment I would say is, this defense is so bad because it's really not that great. It's not even average, I don't think. And it would not, if the season ended this week, I mean, if it was over and the season was over at this point, it would not disappoint me one bit to see nobody get a black shirt.
Thanks for the call, Matthew. I'm going to let you take it, Adrian.
Are you too upset to talk?
No, that's first of all, it's not ridiculous. He doesn't know. Nobody knows. All I'm saying is possibly, And I think that's how that conversation got going. Is who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
If they'd have
Yeah.
handed out those black shirts back then, maybe it was a different story. Possibly,
Possibly.
I talked about
I also
speculation.
think it's very, very possible that they could have gone the opposite direction because
Well, sure.
this was a team that thought they were high and mighty. Even Coach Pelini said it on a press conference. This is a team that bought into the hype set by the media that this could be the best Bo Pelini defense yet at Nebraska. And if they get the black shirts, they're standing more tall, walking higher, thinking that they're the cream of the crop. And I think it might have actually done more damage.
And this was brought to my attention this weekend.
Could have very well happened that way. No doubt about it.
If the defense is playing like this, and of course they should improve. They shouldn't get worse. They'll get better. Alfonso Dennard, Levante David, the two, real staples of the defense are gone after this year. So you have to find guys to plug in there, and this is a defense that already hasn't shown much. And you lose Crick, obviously, to injury. So I tell you what, guys, if you would have told me, October 24th, we were going to be talking about the defense being bad and the offense being so great, I would have called you crazy. But that's what it looks like so far. As Nebraska scores 41 points against Minnesota, 51 against Washington, 34 against Ohio State. And they're young. Martinez has got 2 more years. Rex Burkhead's got another year. The speed wide receivers, Jamal Turner and Kenny Bell. The offensive line continues to improve. The offense looks like it's going to be dynamite the next couple of years.
Well, you lose 3 people up front in the offensive line, but we've got some people waiting to play there who have shown they can play, and I'm encouraged by what I see there. So offensively, I'm looking for some good stuff coming next fall and the fall after. We'll see how that all goes, but defensively is a whole different story, and I wish I knew what the answers were as far as defense goes, because I don't think anybody does. They are underachieving without a doubt, obviously on its face. You would think as far as Carl and Bo that they'd be able to get them jacked up and ready to go and play, but they've played better, but not at the level, Josh, where they need to be. They've got to play much better. If they're going to be a championship team, they got to play much better on defense, and they've got to continue to get better on offense. So this is a very speculative year all the way around, and the proof will be in the next 5 weeks.
Adrian Fiala, Jake Bogus, Josh Harvey, thanks for your time. We'll probably talk to you again on Friday. Are you taking Nebraska right now? I
am taking Nebraska right now on Friday.
If you're taking them now, you got to hang.
On Friday, I'll give you a score prediction.
Okay, how about
Good.
But I'm going to stick with them throughout the whole week unless we hear some sort of major injury or whatnot.
Right.
It's The Drive on 93.7 The Ticket.